Hello students, and welcome to yet another in a series of video lectures. Today's topic is going to be task groups. We're going to talk about specialized methods. The readings are coming from chapter 12. And so pay attention. I would encourage you also to go back and do your readings to make sure that you fully understand the concepts that are about to be presented. And with that, let's move into our discussion for today. Again, task groups, specialized methods. In your readings today, we are talking about task groups. And as you recognize and remember from earlier lessons and readings and experiences in class, is that the groups series typically deals with one of two types of groups, treatment or task groups. Task groups are what we're going to concentrate on today, spending some time talking about what methods are utilized in organizational settings to actually help organizations reach the goals that they actually have. And so we're going to spend some time today really kind of digging into organizations. And so thinking about the tasks that organizations have might be around how they provide services better for their clients, how they budget and plan for services that they provide, things of that nature. So it's a lot more global in its scheme in terms of what methods or what goals they're trying to accomplish, but some of the same factors that we run into in terms of how we run groups are pretty much the same regardless. Only thing is different is your population, where in a micro group or treatment setting you're looking at a handful of individuals, where in organizations you might be talking about 50 or more individuals around a table trying to make some decisions about how to move things forward. So let's talk about the different types of organizations. So there are small organizational groups that often are nonprofits. Many of you will probably do some internship experiences at one of these particular types of agencies. And what we utilize is in keeping in mind that in today's economy, where money and resources tend to be an issue, that smaller organizations tend to be under the gun in terms of funders, in terms of grants and things of that particular nature. So it's imperative for them to move forward in terms of looking at how to utilize the resources and be responsible for the services that they provide for the larger community. And so one of the ways that that is done is through the aspect of brainstorming. And I know that you all have heard about brainstorming and have learned about it, but it's done in a little bit of a different way when you're looking at organizational settings. So what we need to pay attention to when we're looking at brainstorming is recognizing that this is kind of some of the procedures are around just being a freewheeling conversation. So what ideas do you have? No matter how strange they may seem, that can be presented and looked at and examined as a possible means of resolving some of the agency issues that might be pressing. Ruling out criticism, looking at certain types of quantities, combining, rearranging, improving ideas is always encouraged. We're asking members on some occasions to just withhold judgment about ideas that they might actually have or evaluations, and allow people to explain those particular concepts that they have. And again, brainstorming is this total effort is directed at creative thinking. So we're looking at what are, in the best possible scenario, some ways to look at how we can move forward as an agency. Other things to recognize during this brainstorming procedure is that the co-leader usually has a flipboard or is taking notes or writing things on the grease board to kind of record ideas as they come up. We also want people to interact in free-flowing conversations, members offering one idea at a time and actually having some discussion on those are things that we encourage in terms of the brainstorming pieces. And then throughout the process, you as a group leader should express an interest in the ideas that are presented, urge all of the members to continue to produce creative ideas, and to help group elaborate on ideas that have not been fully presented. So it's a really good tool to actually utilize in terms of moving forward and getting some of the best thinking on the table around um, what might be in the interest of the organization. And some of those benefits actually include um, open sharing, maximum output of ideas. Um, you can actually do this in a group where folks are highly competitive and still feel safe. It's stimulating intellectually as well. Um, and these ideas generated internally rather than imposed on the outside of the group really increases the feeling of accountability. So some things to keep in mind around brainstorming. And then as we move into um, some different variations, you've got your reverse brainstorming where ideas are put out and the immediate response is to really look at what could possibly go wrong if we move forward with that idea. Trigger groups, um, which individuals work alone for 5 to 10 minutes, develop a list of ideas, and then come back to the larger group and then start to present those ideas and to list those. A focus group, which you all have actually did one. You did one on the first night of class in groups actually to really look at helping us evaluate how well we were doing as a program. So all of these are techniques that you can utilize to move forward in terms of this process of getting an idea. Now, the other thing to keep in mind around brainstorming is you really have to have an identified problem or purpose in terms of where you're moving forward before you can actually do the brainstorming. So you want to make sure that you're clear about what the issues are so that you brainstorm accordingly in terms of those types of things. The nominal group techniques is a different methodology in terms of looking at how to resolve um, group issues for some of those smaller organizations. So developing that statement of problem, having those ideas outlined, having a round robin type of a setup, um, encouraging hitchhiking, so taking ideas that you may hear and build on them, looking at ranking ideas based on the blue sticky wall is something that I think about that we've done in past where we'd have this huge wall with a sticky surface and folks would actually write on small pieces of paper what some of the ideas they have, and then we put them on the board, and then we start to arrange them by theme and by category, and then slowly start a process of elimination. So when you're looking at nominal group techniques, that's a process that works very well in terms of looking at all of those particular factors. The other pieces are the multi-attribute utility analysis, and it's kind of a complicated mouthful, but basically it looks at multiple particular areas. So in your textbook, for example, on page 378, there's an example of a task group really looking at trying to develop some criteria for an applicant for a position that the agency is creating. And so they're looking at a number of different attributes that they're looking for in terms of having an employee that will fit that bill. And so they're looking at supervisory experience, clinical experience, management skills, interest in innovation. So looking at and being able to rate folks based on how well they're able to meet those needs is one particular application of this multi-attribute utility analysis. Also, we have quality circles, quality improvement teams, and self-managed groups. And so oftentimes in larger organizations, you will see this particular process work. I've had the luxury of actually sitting on quality assurance teams in larger organizations, and there's a formatted way that we take a look at how an agency might be functioning in terms of making recommendations for improvement. So those teams are nothing more than task groups that are centered around really looking at understanding, measuring, and analyzing performance for agencies and then giving them feedback about how to do things differently. Also in large organizations, county, state level organizations, oftentimes you have what's called parliamentary procedure, which is a different large task group methodology that's utilized to actually move things away in an orderly fashion. These are usually meetings where there are a large number of people that might be coming from many different walks and different levels of expertise. And so, how do you get all of the voices into the room? And the parliamentary procedure, which often utilizes Robert's Rules of Orders, is very inspirational or very much a critical part of that particular process. So, again, in your readings, you will look at a number of different examples of the parliamentary procedure. And then the Phillips 66, which is a process actually that I haven't actually used in a group setting in a large organization. But according to your readings, it was really developed by this organization back in the 50s, which was a way to look at modifying techniques and basic principles. And members are broken into groups of 6. They look at doing a number of different processes that actually involve members on a larger group, but reporting back to the larger group once they've actually finished. So again, I'd encourage you to continue to read more about those particular processes. And it's highly unlikely that in the course of your time here that you'll be involved in that level of intervention. Also, methods of working with community groups. So moving outside of the community and really starting to look at things like raising public awareness. And so these particular community group meetings will look at mobilization strategies, we'll look at capacity for communities, they'll also look at social action strategies. And so when you're thinking about mobilization strategies, meeting with residents in the community around a certain issue, testifying at public hearings, demonstrating boycotting, as you can see quite often up at our state capitol, there are a number of issues that come up every legislative year, and folks will show up at the Capitol to voice their concerns about how legislators are responding. So those are examples of community group meetings. As a matter of fact, Social Work Day at the Capitol, which is coming up this year for all of you, will be a form of a community group meeting where you actually get to meet with legislators to talk about issues that have been set forth for the NASW as relates to how we provide services for our citizens in Minnesota. So look forward to that particular process. Again, looking at capacity building and looking at whether there are things that are happening in the community and whether the community actually has the resources to tackle those particular issues, looking at assets in the community, things of that particular nature are all very important, as well as social action strategies. So when you're talking about organizing voter registration or nominating or working with public officials, participating or designing public hearings, lobbying and advocating for positions are all methods of working with groups in the community that you will actually utilize over time. So again, when you're looking at working in the community and you're looking at working with larger organizations or the community in general, specialized methods are a very important tool and a very important process that you'll need to engage in terms of looking at what will be in the best interest of the agency that you're working with, what's going to be in the best interest of clients that you're working with, and it's also a way at the community level to engage clients in the work that you're doing in terms of setting up your groups. So as always, I encourage you to read the chapters and to think about how these things apply to you in your journey as a social worker. And I will see you in class.